98 Bankfin Touring Car Championship with some innovative changes designed to make for more competitive racing. Points will now be awarded to the top 8 drivers in qualifying, and they go into a draw to determine grid positions. There were also changes to weight penalties for winning cars, and teams are now allocated 4 new tyres for practice and 8 for qualifying and the 2 races. There was an early boost for long-serving Nissan Sentra privateer George Brazaidnote when he was the quickest of the privateers in the first qualifying session. British driver Mark Peters in the Duxbury Modems BMW qualified 9th, with Cape Townian Hilton Cowie in the Minolta Toyota Corolla setting 7th fastest time. Former champion Terry Moss was 5th fastest in the new look engine Audi, with another former champion Sean van der Linde an encouraging 3rd fastest in the Sassel BMW. Reigning champions Nissan started where they left off last year, with Duncan Foss setting the fastest qualifying time ahead of teammate Geniel de Villiers, the 1997 champion. The BP Nissan Sentra pair were followed by the Sassel BMWs of former champions Sean van der Linde and Mike Briggs, and the Audis of Moss and teammate Chris Aberdeen. There were ominous rain clouds about when the qualifying session for round 2 started. The rain stayed away, but there was a change in the privateer pecking order, with Marco de Santos in the Duckham's Midas Nissan Sentra setting the quickest time. Mike Briggs parked the Sassel BMW after setting the 5th fastest time, with Eastern Cape farmer Terry Moss in the engine Audi just 0.08 of a second faster than the BMW man in 4th place. There was another encouraging 3rd place for the 1994 champion Sean van der Linde in the 2nd Sassel BMW, but once again the BP Nissan pair of Geniel de Villiers and Duncan Foss were the dominant factors. This time it was de Villiers who set the fastest time, just 0.04 of a second quicker than his teammate. Less than half a second separated the first 3 cars, and in an atmosphere that was full of light-hearted banter, South African Touring Car Association Chairman Graham Duxbury took charge of the draw for grid positions for round 1 of the Bankfin Touring Car Series.
Driver, Mr. Foss.
That's number 8.
Take it out, shower.
From fastest in qualifying to 8th on the grid was a cruel blow for Duncan Foss, but for Sean van der Linde, AA Kyalami is certainly his lucky circuit.
Couldn't have asked for better. It's really an exciting adventure, and I was hoping to get pole, and I did obviously, and a 3rd for the second heat just makes it, just tops it up. And it's going to be a very hard race though. Geniel's also didn't draw bad, it's 3rd and a 5th. He's going to be right there. But we're going to have to hang out and push hard from the word go.
For round 1 and a van der Linde Moss front row. De Villiers Nissan and Cowie Toyota on row 2. Brazaidnote Nissan Sentra and Briggs BMW the 4th row. And row 5 the Aberdeen Audi and the unfortunate Duncan Foss. Let's now join Arnie Getz for round 1 action.
It's rolling starts these days in the Bankfin series, with poleman Sean van der Linde controlling the pace. Van der Linde and Terry Moss both made good starts, along with Geniel de Villiers, and the BMW man had the right line to lead de Villiers and Moss into the Penzol curves. The AA Kyalami first corner syndrome struck again, and the first casualty of the season was Chris Aberdeen after contact with a Briggs Sassel BMW. Briggs then muscled his way past George Brazaidnote at Nashua and took Duncan Foss in the 2nd BP Nissan Primera, and Hilton Cowie in the Minolta Toyota Corolla with him. Along the old AA Kyalami pit straight, van der Linde led de Villiers, Moss, Briggs, Cowie and Foss, with Marco de Santos challenging Brazaidnote on the outside at the Goodyear sweep. Replay action recollection of the Chris Aberdeen-Mike Briggs incident at the entrance to the Penzor curves. Aberdeen looks to have everything under control before engine Audi and Sassel BMW made contact with the Audi, spinning it off into the gravel trap. The incident left the Audi with a punctured left rear tyre, with Aberdeen slowly coasting back to the pits and out of contention. Up at Westbank, Van der Linde was still ahead of De Villiers and Moss in the unscathed MJ and Audi. There were little gaps back to Briggs and Voss, with Hilton Kawi and Marco de Santos disputing 6th and 7th. Terry Moss down the Caltex mineshaft under a full head of steam, listened to the engine note with no lifting off through the Haviland sweep. Then it's down through the gearbox and hard on the brakes for the hairpin at the Vodacom Bowl. Ahead of the engine Audi as Moss started the short climb to the AA Kink with Van der Linde and De Villiers. This is one of the trickiest sections of the AA Kyalami circuit, with Van der Linde jumping over the curves. In line astern were De Villiers, Moss, Briggs and Voss, with Marco de Santos ahead of Hilton Kawi. There's race cam action now from the Voss BP Nissan Primera, with the Johannesburg driver making up 3 places after his unfortunate drop down the pecking order when the draw for grid positions was made. Sean van der Linde always seems to go well at AA Kyalami, but he was under serious pressure from reigning champion Janil De Villiers as the pair led the pack into the Penzor curves for the second time. Terry Moss wasn't losing contact with the pair, with Mike Briggs and Duncan Voss well placed as we go to race cam action from the De Villiers BP Nissan Primera. Out of Nashua, it's up through the gears with Bankfin touring cars building up to around 180 k's an hour. That's on the run to the Goodyear sweep. Dab on the brakes with the car sliding to the outside of the circuit on the approach to Goodyear sweep. This is one of the slowest corners at AA Kyalami, and Duncan Voss decided it was a good time to sneak up on Mike Briggs and dive for the inside of the corner. Briggs was clipped amidship with a Sassel BMW spinning to a halt on the inside of the circuit. Standard race cars never start when you want them to, and while Briggs was battling to get underway again, Aberdeen, whose wife Brenda presented him with their first child in the early hours of race day, was in the pits with engine Audi technicians replacing that faulty left rear wheel. Lap 3 and a change in race order coming up, with Janil De Villiers perfectly placed alongside Sean van der Linde on the approach to the Haviland sweep. Through went De Villiers, who more than any other driver looks to have perfected the most effective race line through the Vodacom Bowl hairpin. However, van der Linde was not about to let De Villiers get away from him, and behind the pair, Terry Moss was under pressure from Duncan Voss at the AA Kink. Drama, and Voss's desperate challenge down to the inside was a little overambitious, and he was lucky to miss the straw bale barrier aimed at deterring taking the short route through the AA Kink. Voss had to resort to the gravel trap route, which doesn't do much for the tyres at all. Voss's little escapade also led through Marco de Santos into 4th place behind race leader De Villiers, Van der Linde and then Moss in 3rd. Things were hotting up. Lap 5 and Janil De Villiers in the BP Nissan Primera was starting to edge away from Sean van der Linde and the Sassel BMW. The Moss engine Audi had also lost a little ground, with Duncan Voss desperately trying to haul in privateer Marco de Santos and the Duckham's Midas Nissan Sentra. On the approach to the AA Kink, there was a puff of tyre smoke as de Santos locked up the brakes, and unlike Voss on the previous lap, de Santos made solid contact with the AA Kink straw bales. From race car to high-speed bulldozer in one easy move, with that little episode forcing de Santos to retire the car. Two-thirds distance and drama starting to build again. Sean van der Linde and the Sassel BMW was now right up with race leader Janil De Villiers in the BP Nissan Primera. It looked very much as though De Villiers had run into a tyre wear problem of some sort. Tyre wear is also a factor with the rear-wheel drive Sassel BMWs, generally a little easier on rubber than the front-wheel drive cars. Let's face it, tyre wear is always expected, but it was a bit of a surprise to see the BP Nissan struggling with 4 laps still to go. De Villiers was having to resort to taking defensive lines through the corners, and Van der Linde was piling on the pressure and trying to force a mistake from the Cape youngster, who totally dominated the 1997 Bankfin Touring Car Championship. Further back, Duncan Voss had worked his way ahead of Terry Moss again, and this encounter was also drawing lots of spectator interest. To the front, De Villiers looked to have the legs on Van der Linde on the quicker sections of AA Kyalami, but tyre wear rears its ugly head under braking and through the twisty bits. It was here that Van der Linde suddenly had a huge advantage, and the question was whether or not De Villiers could hold off the Sassel Beamer for 3 and a bit laps. It was looking to be a doubtful call for De Villiers, and Van der Linde and the BMW pit must have been sensing that the BP Nissan Primera was there for the taking. It was looking to be a matter of where and when Van der Linde would go into the lead. With the de Villiers-Van der Linde battle shaping up to reach an exciting climax, there was also drama brewing further back. Duncan Voss in the second BP Nissan Primera closed up on Terry Moss in that NGN Audi. Moss ploughed through some of the De Santos debris on the Gestetner straight, and the pair were neck and neck into the Penzor curves. In what both drivers later described as a racing accident, the two cars touched, with Voss flying off the circuit to reappear across Moss's bows and slam into the wall on the inside of the circuit. And after all that ice skating, you can guess the inevitable happened.
With the Voss car in a dangerous position, the race was stopped, and out came one of the many red flags that plagued the first meeting of the year at AA Kyalami. With 2/3 of the race distance completed, AA racing officials declared de Villiers the winner ahead of Van der Linde, Moss, Voss and Briggs. There was a good result for privateer Nico van Rensburg in 6th place in the Hillbank Nissan Sentra, and as the champagne flowed on the podium, it was a case of de Villiers and Nissan being saved by the bell.
7 or 8 laps, my tyres were just finished. They were just shot. There was no grip left at all. So he caught me again, and then the red flag came out. So I'm actually glad the red flag came out. So, but it was a good race for us.
The round 2 grid with Chris Aberdeen drawing the number 1 slot, and alongside him the Briggs BMW. Row 2, Van der Linde and Cowie. Row 3, de Villiers and De Santos. And row 4, Moss and poor Duncan Voss, who again found himself tail-end Charlie in the luck of the draw.
It's suitable for celebrity type racing, but not for proper championship.
We pick up the action on lap 2 of the second round of the Bankfin Touring Car Championship with new father and pole position man Chris Aberdeen in early control in the NGN Audi. Behind Aberdeen, Mike Briggs was ahead of round 1 winner Janil de Villiers, who was the Nissan Primera meet in a Sassel BMW sandwich, with Sean van der Linde 4th. Next up were Hilton Cowie and Marco De Santos, with Duncan Voss ahead of Terry Moss in the second NGN Audi. Well, you knew it. De Santos and Cowie were involved in a real ding-dong battle, and when Voss joined the pair at the Winfield S's, a little argy-bargy saw Cowie in a big spot of bother. Battling to keep it straight, it wasn't turning into a happy day for Cowie, with the Minolta Toyota Corolla running into gearbox problems in round 1. Down the Caltex mineshaft, Janil de Villiers was in hot pursuit of Mike Briggs, with the second heat reduced to 8 laps after consultations between the South African Touring Car Association and tyre manufacturer Yokohama. Excessive tyre wear in the first round led to the cut in round 2 race distance, with the BMW squad not altogether happy with the decision. The 2 rear-wheel drive Sassel BMWs are a lot easier on rubber than the front-wheel drive entries, and where national championships are concerned, teams are always looking for any advantage that puts them ahead of the opposition. Terrific battle going on between Briggs, de Villiers and Van der Linde, who were holding each other up. Race leader Chris Aberdeen took full advantage of the situation to open up what looked like developing into a decisive cushion. Aberdeen had a 2 or 3 second advantage over Briggs, who had de Villiers and Van der Linde right on his tail. Privateer Marco De Santos was having a good run in the Duckham's Midas Nissan Sentra, and the tension was clearly evident in the Sassel BMW pit. Down the Caltex mineshaft, there were ominous puffs of smoke from the Van der Linde BMW, the legacy of a lap 1 tangle with teammate Mike Briggs, and one always had the feeling that something had to give in the battle between Briggs, de Villiers and Van der Linde. Up the short hill to the AA kink with race cam action from the Van der Linde Sassel BMW. The drama everyone was waiting for was about to unfold, and it was de Villiers who was the victim. Coming out of the AA kink, there was contact between the Van der Linde BMW and the de Villiers BP Nissan Primera, and it was the reigning Bankfin champion who ended up right in the gravel trap. That little confrontation allowed Marco De Santos and Terry Moss to close up on the 2 Beamers, and going into the Penzor Curves, 1996 champion Moss took the second NGN Audi past De Santos and into 4th place. The unfortunate de Villiers was back in action, but in a shortened race, any hopes he had of a double win were right out the window. 2 laps to go, and all Chris Aberdeen had to do to take the win was to keep the NGN Audi on the black stuff. All the action was behind the Cape Town helicopter operator. Briggs had dropped back with clutch problems, and it was now Voss who was putting Van der Linde under big pressure. Voss had moved past privateer Marco De Santos and Terry Moss, and with 4 hard men all within a couple of car lengths of each other, all the ingredients were there for a little more drama, if that was possible. Aberdeen was long gone with the early Van der Linde Briggs confrontation, and then the Briggs de Villiers Van der Linde battle, giving the NGN Audi driver the break he needed to virtually make sure of his 9th career touring car win. Weren't giving away anything on the run from the AA King to the 90-degree left-hander at Gestetner. Voss came down the inside of Van der Linde. Moss was also in there, and Van der Linde was forced onto the dirt. The Sassel BMW went into the predictable spin, with Moss, Voss and De Santos disappearing down the Gestetner straight, 3 abreast. Into the Penzol curves, it was hairy-chested stuff from Moss Foster Santos trio, with Briggs touring around in much more leisurely fashion in a rather sick-sounding Sassel BMW. The final lap, with Marco dos Santos scoring points for the privateer fraternity. Dos Santos had the Duckham's Midas Nissan Sentra ahead of the factory DP Nissan Primera of Duncan Foss and the Works Engine Audi of Terry Moss. Race leader Chris Aberdeen was home and dry, but Foss and Moss, that sounds a bit like a vaudeville act, had to try and rescue some Works team pride. It was Foss who was ahead of Moss as they chased after Marco dos Santos down the Caltex mineshaft. Asking everything from that engine, the hairpin at the Vodacom Bowl is one of the obvious places for last lap heroics. Foss took a deep breath and then dive-bombed dos Santos under braking. The upshot saw dos Santos forced out wide, and when the Duckham's Nissan Sentra went onto the dirt, Moss took the engine Audi into third on the road behind Aberdeen and Foss. Going into the Kestetner left-hander for the last time, the gaps between the three cars determined that there would be no change in order across the finish line. Foss took the checkered flag behind Aberdeen, but race officials took a dim view of Foss's part in the early race incident with Hilton Cowie and his Vodacom Bowl treatment of dos Santos.
The penalty imposed on Foss saw him placed behind Moss and dos Santos in the official results. That gave the engine Audi team a 1-2 and dos Santos his first ever podium finish in the Bankfin Touring Car Championship.